You're live.
Excellent. Good evening. Want to welcome everyone to this evening's Discipline Matrix Ad Hoc Committee. We are convening tonight, March 5th, 6:07 p.m., starting a couple minutes late, but nonetheless, we are here tonight. We are joined by, are we acting captain tonight still?
I am, indeed.
Mr. Hubbard, always great to see you. We are going to hopefully be joined by a couple other folks, but if not, we're going to pick up where we left off in our last meeting, 219. Did want to remind folks that we will be meeting. We've changed our meetings to every first and third Wednesday of the month moving forward. So our next meeting will be on Wednesday, March 19th. Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah, just want to make sure I had that right. Excellent. So, a couple weeks ago we had left off, and we're going to have some additional edits and conversations on the reporting violations and gifts and gratuity conversations. And we have a handful of class one violations still to cover, but we are pretty much getting to the end of that list. And so just happy to we're kind of making some good headway in that regard. Good evening, Deacon Lyles. How are you, sir? Good to see you this evening. I think you might be on mute still.
And I apologize.
There you go. How you doing, sir? Good to see you.
Hey, Ricardo, how you guys doing?
Well, thank you.
We're doing well. We're doing well. Actually, just getting started now. There was a couple.
The last meeting's minutes are in the chat if you want to access them there tonight as well.
Thank you. Excellent. So I'll hand it over to Captain Hubbard, so you could pick us up where we left off. As I mentioned, there's a couple conversations that we still want to revisit, and then there were a few of them, a handful of class ones that were left that were pretty straightforward that we're hoping we could get through tonight. So I will hand it over to you, sir.
All right, thank you. Welcome. Everyone can see my screen, I hope.
Yes.
Okay, great. Couple edits to 31448. This is reporting violations and failure to report misconduct when required. As you recall, these were two different sections, and we found that to be confusing. One said, if you're aware of misconduct, you have 24 hours to report it, but if you're arrested, then you have 72 hours. So we decided to combine them. And I will go through that. And coincidentally, there was a discussion about it this week internally with the chief, and I assured him that we are looking at this, and he was pleased with that. So reporting violations of laws, ordinance, rules, and orders, and those in bold are the changes. Members and employees must report any violations of law, policy, or direct orders committed by other members or employees. The first one, serious violations. These are class ones and pattern class 2 violations. Violations that constitute class 1 offense or a pattern of class 2 misconduct must be reported within 24 hours or as soon as practical. Reports must be made orally and in writing to a supervisor or the Internal Affairs Bureau. As you remember, it said a memorandum, so it just said in writing. So it's more, I guess, mainstream to how we communicate today, which is typically via email. Single occurrence class 2 violations. If a class 2 violation is not a pattern, members may address it through non-disciplinary corrective action when appropriate. I did a presentation on that about a month and a half ago. If the violation is reasonably considered serious or egregious, we did have a big conversation about that last week about what is serious, what is egregious. Just if it's reasonably considered to be that, it must be reported immediately to any supervisor, including the chief of police. The chain of command may be bypassed. And then the last one is if there's any question that it is egregious, then it shall be reported. So if a person's on the fence or they don't know, we are encouraging them to report it. Mandatory notifications, members and employees must notify an IEB commander by phone and email within 72 hours if they are named in a lawsuit, are arrested in accordance with California Penal Code 834, have their California driver's license suspended or revoked, are cited in lieu of arrest, excluding vehicle code infractions, are served with a civil or administrative process related to their employment or alleging a manual rules violation, learn they are under investigation for a misdemeanor or felony, or if a member cannot notify due to incarceration, hospitalization, or travel, the unit commander must ensure the report is submitted. So this one's a big change also because we've had a couple of these cases where someone is arrested, let's say, and then they call the watch commander and they forget that or they're not in a position to write something. So this puts the onus on the commander, which I agree with, to where he or she would then be responsible for making sure it's in writing. So it's more of a technical violation before, so this makes it more streamlined. Yes, sir. Any questions?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I had a question. Cited in lieu of an arrest.
Mhm.
And this may be technical, but isn't any vehicle violation where you get a citation, isn't that a cite in lieu of an arrest? It's an infraction, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you speeding and you get a speeding ticket, I mean, technically you could be taken to the judge immediately, but they give you a citation, and the citation actually says that in so many days you're cited in lieu of an arrest, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it does say in here excluding vehicle code infractions right here. But
okay, thank you. No, nothing else needs to be said.
The intention behind, I mean, we can't talk about this because it's an 849B type situation where the person
right
could be, but they're cited instead.
Yeah.
I mean, should I
I'll
put
have some coffee here and wake up here.
Yeah, well, should I put 849B in there? Would that be? I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that'd be better. That
Okay.
would be more clear.
So this is referencing specifically an 849B type situation. Then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can tell you that this section is actually closely related to another conversation I think we already had. If not, it'll be coming up soon about asking other agencies for favors. You know, officers can't leverage their position to get out of things, and if an officer then says, oh, can't you just give me a citation instead of taking me to jail, and the officer does that, I mean, there's going to be another allegation lodged against that officer for leveraging their authority. Yeah, it kind of fits in the family of gifts or gratuities. So any other questions on this section?
No, it looks good.
Okay, great. All right.
Go
ahead.
You mentioned the chief was interested. You guys had a conversation in this. Is there any particular parts that he was interested in, or that made sense, or maybe any feedback on?
Yeah, it was specific to the written notification. There was just a recent case where notifications were made, but they didn't do the technical written notification, so it was a sustained finding within that manual of rules.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Would it be appropriate, or you think it's wise? Oh, do you think it's wise to have a line in here about the officer who shows up to a traffic stop or some kind of engagement with a police officer on behalf of their family, relative, or something like that, and try to get some kind of favor out of it?
Certainly, I think that would fit more under.
It does fit under gratuities, but gratuities throws me off. You know, this is somebody coming down, showing up at the scene of an incident and trying to get the police to look the other way because that's their child or their cousin or significant other or something like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the actual section that it would actually.
They had a city manager that did that in Oakland, and she got in trouble for it, as I remember.
See. Was just looking at this section too. I mean, yeah, I get.
Members and employees should not use their authority to solicit or attempt. No, that's not it.
Yeah, it would be this one, to obtain or grant privileges or favors. I guess I always looked at get, and I'm going to talk about it here next, but I always looked at it as a good that you would receive, but no, this section would apply. So if you're using your authority or position right here
Yeah.
to obtain or grant privileges or favors, then this section would apply. So that example, that would be applicable here.
Do you think it would be too much to cite it a second time in your list at the other lists we had there? Put it in one of those bullet points.
Yeah, let me see. So this is
Seems
notification.
like it would make it maybe is redundant, but at least people would understand that that's equally as important. Yeah. Use the same language.
Yeah, I know. It's testing my memory. I tried to memorize it and then I failed. Yeah. Okay. Shall not use their. Right. That needs to be. Okay. Yeah.
Hello.
Hey.
Good evening.
I joined the meeting about 10 minutes or so ago with my hand up. I just have a couple questions after you finish this thought.
I'm ready.
You were talking about making reports in writing. Is there a glossary of terms? And do we need to describe what in writing means? Or do you think it would be clear enough?
Well, we did have this conversation a few weeks back about how you want to give enough information, but you also don't want to impeach yourself. Like, we're not asking people to confess everything in writing. It's basically just, here are the known, here's I got arrested, here's the city, done.
No, I'm not saying substance as much as process. When you say in writing,
Yeah.
it means email, memorandum, or
Yeah.
other forms of written communication. Or is that unnecessary? Is that too micro?
It was previously a memorandum, and we felt that that was antiquated, so we left it just in writing, so it can mean many different things.
Okay.
It was somewhat intentional, yeah.
I just know how there's a preference at times to parse language and say, well, you didn't say what kind of writing or whatever, but I think maybe we're okay with that. And then you're referencing last week's meeting. We didn't meet last week,
2
right?
weeks, yeah, 2 weeks ago.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. I was so used to us meeting every week that I forgot
Okay.
to meet last week.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I want to go over gifts, gratuities, soliciting or accepting. We had a pretty good discussion about this a couple weeks ago. So I'll preface it with we haven't had a problem with this section per se, but we always run into some problems when there's community outreach programs or members from the community who want to give something back to the police department. And there's always this consideration to whether we can accept it. And I'm talking about, food, not a trip to Home Depot or a place to get, power tools. So it's something that, and I did put a value in here, you'll see. So hopefully this new language kind of merges those two things together, but I'll go ahead and read it. Members and employees shall not use their authority or position, whether for personal benefit or on behalf of another, when such benefit would not otherwise be available to them as a private individual. Specifically, members and employees shall not solicit, accept, or barter for any goods, services, or other benefits based on their position, accept any goods or services for personal use where the intent is to convert them to private gain, seek or receive financial or material gain beyond their official compensation, grant or obtain privileges, favors, or preferential treatment in exchange for gifts or gratuity, use their position to avoid legal or administrative consequences for themselves or others. Community gifts and tokens of appreciation. This is a new section. To maintain public trust while recognizing community goodwill, members and employees may accept unsolicited gifts of nominal value defined as $25 or less, only if the gift is not repetitive in nature, does not create a negative perception within the community, and does not give the appearance of impropriety. That's new language, actually. I should highlight that. We came up with that last time. There is no expectation, of preferential treatment or reciprocity. The gift is offered openly in a manner consistent with community engagement. The gift is not from a business or individual that has a financial interest in police operations or decisions. Group gifts provided to an entire unit, division, or station, such as holiday food baskets or appreciation meals, may be accepted with supervisor approval and shall be shared among all on-duty personnel. Documentation requirements. Members and employees who accept permissible gifts or tokens of appreciation shall document all accepted items valued at more than $10 in their daily activity log. I don't know what that means, but I'll have to figure that out, what that actual document is. Submit a memorandum to their commanding officer for any accepted items valued at more than $25. Surrendered gifts exceeding the department value thresholds to their commanding officer for disposition. Declining prohibited gift. Yes.
Before you go too far, my memory fades. So submit a memorandum to their commanding officer for any accepted items valued at $25 within a certain time period. I think that when you leave it just open like that, we should state within either 24 hours or 5 business days or something like that. But I think there should be within a period of time. And I think also up earlier when you were talking about repetitive, and I know that was something that I asked for, but repetitive in nature within what period of time? Is it within a calendar year or is it within a 30-day period? What is repetitive and how do we measure repetitive, I guess? Because we don't want it to be repetitive, but we have to define what that means.
And may I add, what do we drive? What do we really want to say here? What is the activity that police officers sometimes expect and other proprietors want to give them on a repetitive nature? And that seems to be, free coffee, free breakfast, free dinners, that kind of stuff. So you can have their presence at your business and their cars around your business and etc. And so if that's what, if everyone, if people agree that that's what we really want to say, I think we ought to say that. We ought to, you know, for example, repetitive gifts is not repetitive in nature, such as free breakfasts,
or just free food stuffs.
free drinks. Well,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's helpful if we give just a brief
You know-
example, like, you know,
yeah,
assistant free coffee at your local coffee shop or something. No,
there's a distinction between free food stuff and what I'm talking about. Free food stuff, to me, you can get a bag of groceries out of a store and walk in, the officer is not there no more than 5 minutes. But what the proprietor, the business person want is the presence of the police officer. So they say you can have, you come down here for breakfast every morning, and you got 8 cops around, you know, Michael's taco stand or wherever, and, you know, and that kind of thing. We had a terrible problem when I was working at Spanger's. You know, we had a group of officers that would meet at Spanger's in the morning by habit for decades. And so, you know, the citizens of they responded from Spanger's.
mm-hmm.
And then that means people who had beats way up around the University of California in Berkeley was responding from, you know, University and 6th Street. So, you know, they weren't on their beat. Why? Because they was down there having, you know, their breakfast every morning. So, and then bringing it up was a big tension. And so if you don't want that, we ought to say what we don't want.
Yeah.
So, for example, but not limited to.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the bottom line is I mentioned this is how when I taught this in the academy, is the officer, the onus is on the officer. They know what they're doing. As in, if you know you're going to this establishment because they X, Y, and Z, then that is on you. You're creating that repetitive behavior, and you're doing it for a particular reason.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I just want the public to know it's not always the officers initiating it.
Okay.
I just want you to know that the demand for that kind of presence is initiated by the business person also.
Yeah.
Equally as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of address that later. There's no expectation of preferential treatment or reciprocity.
Right. And then that business says, hey, you know, people come down here and frequent my business. Do you know this officer? Do you know that officer? Well, give me this, give my daughter this, give my employee that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so up above 2, there was one other thing you mentioned. And would you rather we hold our questions or that we stop you next
Yeah,
time?
you stop me. It's fine. Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to mess up your train of thought. Can we go up a little higher?
Sure.
Oh, the things that something where it said where it was not for private gain, but I think not available. No, not that one. I think it's down maybe a little bit lower. Where was it? It had to do with it wasn't just for a private nature, but it's not available to the public either. Getting a gift that is not a,
Yeah. It's up here.
oh, okay. When such benefit would not otherwise be available to him as a private individual or to the public at large? Yeah. That's it. You were thinking much faster than I could interject.
I'll have to come back to this one, just not repetitive. I know what we're saying.
Yeah. Repetitive in nature means that you keep going to the establishment, or the item is given to you on a consistent basis.
Right. Again, I really do believe the onus is on the officers. Like, even if the public does try, and this is more applicable for graveyard officers who have nothing but that one place that's open. So the perception would be, oh, it's repetitive. So that's where it's on the officer to just refuse. As it's like, I'm coming here to enjoy a good, but I'm going to pay full price. I'm sorry. And here's our policy to show why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your wellness center is trying to create a space where they can come in and get things anyway without needing to go
That's
to
right.
those places.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'll work on that the next couple weeks. I have to work on, I think I'm gonna cut that out. I don't know what that daily log is. I put it in there just because I wanted there to be some, the problem with these memorandums and these logs, if you will, if they're not stored digitally or something that we keep up with, then it just gets lost. And I actually shared that example before. If I actually did this, I wrote a memorandum to the chief saying I received something, and they didn't know what to do with it. They're like, they got mad at me. They're like, well, I know why you did it, but what are we supposed to do with it? I'm like, I don't know. So I have to figure out what the end result is to this. Anyway, okay. Moving on, declining prohibited gifts. When declining gifts that violate this policy, members and employees shall politely explain department policy restrictions, document the declined gift and circumstances, and incident report at the offerer. Okay. Persist or appears to have improper motives. Immediately report to a supervisor any gift offers that suggest an attempt to influence official action. Sorry, my formatting is all messed up today. Examples of acceptable tokens of appreciation. The following are generally considered acceptable when meeting all criteria in section B. Coffee, modest meals, snacks, provided at community policing events, small non-monetary tokens of gratitude, thank you cards, commemorative pins, discounts or promotional items available to all uniformed public safety personnel, attendance at community meetings where members are representing the department in official capacity. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy regarding this, so that's what I was hoping to get some more insight on. Any questions or comments on this? Might have to let it sink in a little bit more. I mean, just today, and it might be tomorrow. I know the Chinatown community are coming in, and it's available to everyone in the police department, but just having a luncheon and just say, hey, everyone's welcome to attend. And
Yeah, and I know we had a discussion about wanting to encourage that while being very clear that those other types of gifts are prohibited. Yeah, we've organized in the Fruitville coffee with coffee events there that have gone really good, and give a little cafecito, a little panecito as part of the breaking bread experience, and so we want to definitely protect that and encourage that, in my opinion.
All right. Well, we can I can make a couple of adjustments and we can come back to it in a couple weeks when our minds are fresh and maybe and think about it some more.
All right, sounds good.
A few weeks ago, I say 4 weeks ago now, or 3 weeks, I should say, we did have a long discussion about performance of duty, improper search, seizure, arrest. So we made this a class 1 only allegation or violation. And I think it was just 2 of us a couple weeks ago talking about this obligation to uphold the Fourth Amendment. We just elected to insert the Fourth Amendment. So that's it. So here's the Fourth Amendment. And we did get rid of unintentional versus intentional search, seizure, arrest. And basically, if you violate the Fourth Amendment, you violate this section. Any questions on that?
Yeah, no, great. I don't know if y'all remember, but we had a pretty extensive conversation about this, about the ambiguity around that, or what's intentional, unintentional. So it's good to see that.
I do remember because we were parsing and trying to give our own interpretation of what the Fourth Amendment means. And when we do that, we're going to trip ourselves up.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just best. And if you want to put whether intentional or unintentional at the very end, violations of this can be intentional or unintentional. I don't know, but that might open the whole box. But I just felt it wasn't necessary for us to try to restate the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to pause this real quick. We have Kathy Leonard in the audience. I know we've had her as a panelist before. Chief of Staff Montgomery, is there a way we could upgrade her to a panelist, or how do we allow her to be able to talk? If she has input she would want to give. I think she's. In the meantime, Kathy, if you want to just, if you have anything that you want to say, you can put in the chat. I could read out loud as well. Great. All right. Why don't we go ahead and move on?
Okay. All right. We did leave off at our last meeting talking about false reporting of illness or injury. Said no changes to this, but I'll just, as we have some new additions for this evening. False reporting of illness or injury. Members or employees shall not feign injury or illness or injury, falsely report themselves ill, or otherwise attempt to deceive the department as to the condition of their health. We did have some challenges with this. I mean, COVID really messed things up for us because it was, even when people were not ill, any slight indication of COVID, that they were required to stay home. Some did not put up a fight over that order, but some surprisingly did. Like, hey, I feel fine, I need to come into work. Obviously it's difficult to prove also, just because for many reasons there's no requirement, or there is after 72 hours or 3 days of missing work, that one gets a doctor's note. But that's not even difficult to do because all the doctor appointments are online now, or most of them are. And how hard is that to say, hey, doctor, I don't feel well, here are my symptoms, write me a note. Again, I don't see people abusing this. It's just one of those sections that, yeah, definitely needed.
want to let you know that Kathy Leonard is here. She's in as an attendee, not as a panelist today, but she's here.
Oh, great. Okay. Awesome. Hi, Kathy.
Hi there. So I've been unmuted, so I guess I can't contribute if I need to. Thank you, and good to see everyone this evening.
Likewise. Okay, any comments on false reporting of illness or injury? Okay. All right. This is a new one. The next three will take us to the end of all class ones. So we're on the home stretch here just for class ones. Personal preferment. Members and employees shall not seek the influence or intervention of any person outside the department for purposes of personal preferment, advantage, transfer, or advancement.
Question.
Yes.
All of these are what one level? What do you call it?
This ones.
Yeah, class one. I'm sorry, guys. I'm so tired. Class one.
Yeah.
And so when you're false reporting, that would fall under untruth. It would be processed as an untruth or processed as this. False report.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And you're right. We did talk about that. I mean, to me, they're not mutually exclusive. If you are falsely reporting an illness or injury, then it's very closely tied to truthfulness, and you'll likely be investigated for that.
Should be a false police report.
It could be that too. I'm trying to think of how one could get sustained for this and not for truthfulness. Yeah, that I think they're one and the same.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just wanted the clarity. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you complete a document to the police department, you're lying.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I know we talked about also like, all right, so what is expected of someone who is sick or injured? Because, you know, this comes in the form of, hey, you called in sick, but I see you at the movies or the club or, you know. And so then it's a question of like, because you're not home in bed, are you indeed sick? So that's where it's hard to prove because, yeah. But
Well, if you're at the movies, you're not sick.
But if you're in line at CVS trying to get your prescription filled.
Exactly. Or I'm not sick, but I got a broken ankle, so I can't work, but I can go to the movies.
Ah.
yeah.
So I think we instead of trying to slice this so thin and look at every situation, each case has to stand on its own merit.
Yeah.
So if a person is at the movies and called in, is unable to work because he got a broken ankle, hey, that's understandable. You can go to the movie.
Yeah, but they should be doing some other whatever, what do you call it?
Light duty?
Yeah, light duty.
Right. Or be at home with your leg raised, not walking on your broken leg.
You know, everybody's not given light duty assignments because they don't have the mental capacity or the training to do the light duty. I don't know. Captain, do you guys have light duty assignments for people? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, we do. We have some assigned to internal affairs. But it all depends on the doctor, because if the doctor says, I want my patient to be completely off because of the possibility of community interaction where, you know, your
Right.
injury so they'll say no.
Can be compounded. Exactly. It's probably better for the city of Oakland that they're not there.
That's right.
In terms of the cost of the injury.
Right.
Well, again, feign it has a true meaning, should not feign illness or injury or falsely report themselves ill or injured or, you know, I don't know if that's
I
what
just,
we're
I
trying
just
to.
think each case has to be looked at
Sure.
looked at its own merit. There's no one size fit all. Just can't.
Yeah.
Also
There's
report
different kind of
themselves,
injuries.
I
falsely
agree
report
with that.
themselves.
It's a case-by-case situation.
No
Yes.
question, no question, or falsely report themselves ill or injured. I would.
Falsely, if you lying about it, you know,
That's the thing, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, add that or injured after you say falsely report themselves ill or injured. Because, you know, yeah, is it really sprained? I don't know. The doctor, did you go to the doctor? Or, you know, it's a for case by case basis, as you said.
yeah. And none of us are physicians, so I'm not gonna argue with that. I mean,
No.
you lose. So
Okay. Great. Any questions on this section, personal preferment?
yeah, I need more detail in it. What do you mean? Okay, you prefer someone over another. What are you talking about? Hiring or
Yeah, I don't know the history of this one, nor have I seen any sustained cases, but let's say that I'm friends with the governor and I'm on the lower level of the captain's list to get promoted, and I use him as leverage to get me promoted. I call my friend Gavin Newsom, hey, can you leverage the chief to get me promoted?
Do you need recommendations, though, in some cases for your advancement?
No,
Oh, okay.
don't need it.
you do for hiring?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is this something that's outlived its usefulness? I mean, do we have cases of that? Are we overwhelmed with that? Or is this just taking up space?
Yeah, I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
I mean, let's think of it through the lens of I get into trouble. Let's forget about just advancement. I get into trouble and I need someone outside who has influence to bail me out of that trouble. I can see this as being valuable, this section.
That's the section that I was alluding to. That's the kind of behavior I was alluding to earlier.
Yeah.
In terms of using your influence in the fact that you're a police officer and you and you want somebody who has some political clout to help you out or whatever.
Captain, should we name that the actual action to avoid, some type of disciplinary action as one of the examples that's on this issue, if that's more relevant?
So you have transfer, but you don't have hiring.
Because they use it in hiring.
I'm sorry?
They use this, what he's saying, what they're writing here is.
So would hiring fall under advantage?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
when you're doing a background check, they ask for recommendations, and folks don't go down and get, put down ex-convict John Smith and and bank robber Willie Jones. They don't do that. They try to look for folks.
No, I
who's an
understand.
attorney. Yeah. So
Right, that wasn't my point. My point was, you can't seek the influence or intervention for a transfer, but what about for a hire? Transfer is on here, but hiring isn't. And my question was, does hiring fall under advantage?
That's what I was saying, that they
Okay.
do use it for hiring, and they want you to put down when you fill out that background document. They expect you to put down folks who will say something positive.
Oh, I see your point. Okay, I
Yeah.
see your point.
So I think this
Right.
is confusing to me. I don't I mean, if somebody is trying to apply for the chief of police, don't they have recommendations? If you're applying for the captain's positions, do you have recommendations on that application, Brian?
You don't. I mean, captain falls under civil service rules, so you still test. That's supposed to be, yeah. There's no, yeah. There's no influence there. Or supposed to be now. Deputy chief and chief, I can see that. Yeah.
They don't go to okay, you want to be a captain and you worked for Deputy Chief John Smith and you're applying for captain. They don't go ask John Smith, tell me about Brian Hubbard. What's his strong points?
Yeah, they do that, but these are persons outside the department that we're talking about. So they do internally. They go to your immediate commander or supervisor. They have to complete a matrix. Yes, that's fine, but I cannot put on there, or I can't say my friend Gavin Newsom is going to get me promoted.
Right, or directly call that person
Yeah,
and say, can you talk to whoever my would-be supervisor is and tell them to give me this position?
Yeah, and I think the key language there, right,
But-
Kathy,
Yeah, but asking for
shall
a
not seek.
recommendation, yeah, asking for a recommendation is different from calling that person and saying, hey, can you call XYZ?
And apply influence. Yeah.
to answer a previous question about hiring, this only applies to those who are already employees. So
I see, okay.
yeah, so someone who is applying for the
Oh,
position.
of course it does, yeah, okay, yeah. Maybe I should drink some coffee and wake up a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we all should.
Me too, Kathy.
I mean, if we reverse engineer this, let's say, because we use civil service rules. If you were on the promotional list and you're, let's say, number 10 out of 20 people, and the 20th person on the list, the very bottom, knew someone in politics who can leverage the chief to then skip everyone else to get to you, I think that would upset the 19 people. And I think this is really what it's about is,
Right,
yeah.
yeah, okay, thank you.
See, I'm saying if that's the intent, then why don't we say that?
Yeah, sure. Let's do
Why
it.
don't we say you can't use political influence?
I can. I'm going to say expand on this and provide context. I think that would be
including but not limited to.
Yep.
I'm interested to see if I can find some relevant examples in today's news. I'm sure I can.
What is the difference between the text that is highlighted in yellow and green? Is yellow what you had last week or some previous edits, and green is today?
No, the ones highlighted in yellow are the ones we just came up with, but it's also like actual language I'm going to use versus the green, which are just notes on what I need to do.
Okay, all righty.
Yeah. I'm just gonna expand and give more context behind this, and then I need to add some things. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay, the last one, or second to last, I think. Yep, second to last, retaliation accountability. This is specific to supervisors, 398.74. Retaliation accountability, supervisors, commanders, and managers shall be held accountable for the conduct of their subordinates if it is determined that the supervisor, commander, or manager knew or should reasonably have known that retaliatory behavior was occurring. Failure to hold subordinates accountable and report the inappropriate activity and ensure that retaliation is investigated and appropriate corrective measures are taken shall subject commanders, managers, and supervisors to the disciplinary process. Department supervisors, commanders, and managers shall be held accountable for providing an atmosphere in their workplace in which department personnel are free from retaliation. Supervisors, commanders, and managers shall also be held accountable for subordinate employees who engage in behavior that the supervisor, commander, or a manager knew or should have known was occurring. Supervisors, commanders, managers shall ensure that employment actions are appropriate and not motivated by or in response to a member employee engaging in a protected activity.
Love it.
Yeah, I don't have anything on this, and I did a little search and I couldn't find anything recent for this, so it really hasn't been a problem. We do get a lot of internal retaliation complaints. So yes, I see your hand. Go ahead.
So, making sure that appropriate corrective measures are taken. Remember, we had a conversation a while back about whether that is just something in a file or whether it is after a pattern or practice, whatever that might be, determined as a pattern or practice, elevates to something higher. So is this a discretionary appropriate corrective measures, or is there something that guides the supervisor?
Yeah, and so this is where I think this is a little bit outdated because inherently, if this is true, then they have to report it to internal affairs. And it goes back to reporting. So they're not in a position to even take appropriate corrective measures. That's for the internal affairs process and the chief of police to do. So basically, this could be summarized where if you know that retaliation is occurring, you shall report it to internal affairs, period. That's it.
Yeah, so this and appropriate corrective measures implies that the subject commander, manager, or supervisor is involved rather than internal affairs. Am I wrong?
That's right. So in other words, if true that there was retaliation and the supervisor, commander, manager knew about it or should have known and didn't report it, they would be sustained for this section. Or they would.
Any way to read this that the corrective measures are imposed by the supervisor, commander, and manager as opposed to internal affairs?
I can look at it that way. I can say, well, I literally held my people accountable, my team accountable by doing X, Y, and Z. Therefore, why should I report it to internal affairs? It says, yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to make sure there's nothing ambiguous or vague about this. where does this go and who does the corrective, imposes the appropriate corrective measures? So is this supposed to, fair goals was accountable and so the report is made to internal affairs? Should that be said somewhere in here?
Yeah, I'd like to shorten this down basically by saying if you're a supervisor, commander, or manager, and you fail to report to internal affairs within 24 hours of known retaliation, then you violate this section. I mean, really, it boils down to that.
That's kind of like what we're trying to get at.
Yeah.
So stuff isn't just corrected by putting something in a file or by verbal warning or verbal something.
I mean, that's basically the opening line here. If it is determined. I mean, this is like inherently true, so I don't really like that. If it's like that's what this whole thing's about, like you're going to be held accountable if you don't do it.
Right.
How about our department? I don't even like department. It's like we all know what that means. Supervisors, commanders, and men are responsible for providing an atmosphere in the workplace in which department personnel are free from retaliation. Okay, this is repetitive. I'm going to cut this out. This is the same thing I said before. It should be a little bit more cleaner.
Yeah.
Okay. Retaliation's hard. It's we get a lot of these complaints, but it could be, you know, on a macro level or micro level,
Mhm.
you know, and the things that are less obvious. We try to write policies that make it more clear on, you know, in going back to the previous one, it's, you know, like promotional retaliation is an easy one, or not an easy one, but a big one. I don't like this person. I want to retaliate by not promoting them.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, say a person says goes to their supervisor and say, I feel like I've been sexually harassed or I've been physically threatened, etc. And then the supervisor does nothing. That's the kind of situation it seems that this would cover. And so having it written how you have it written, making it the responsibility of the commanders to take action, I think it puts the focus at the right place on the right people. They should have, if they know, or they should have known. I love that. And what did you do about it?
Yeah.
Seem like you can add that question. And what did you do about it?
I'll put that in there.
In accordance with DOG, with.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put that in there. We have said that before. I think it's worth repeating because this is a class one, so it all kind of loops back to the original source. If it's a class one, you have to report it, period.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
And did we put in, oh, that's down here, the IAD. IAD.
Yeah, I just put a note in here because I want
Oh,
to make
that's IAD, DOG
Yeah.
in 03.
M3,
Okay.
which is reporting to IA, yeah, or a competent authority. We talked about that before. I want to just go back and use consistent language, so I just gotta insert it.
I agree. Very good.
Okay, and the last one here for class ones are the refusal to accept and refer a complaint. This is our intentional category. I know we do have a unintentional category. We went through this a couple years back. Stanford actually did a study on this or helped us with this section, but this one's easy. This is the intentional. So members and employees shall not refuse to accept a citizen complaint, failure to refer a citizen to the IAD when the citizen can be reasonably understood to want to make a citizen's complaint, fail to forward a complaint to the IAD, discourage a person from filing a complaint, and or knowingly provide false, inaccurate, or incomplete information about the IAD process. Members and employees shall not fail to follow any of the procedures for accepting, referring, or forwarding a complaint. So this one is it's really the black and white, clear cut. The person wants to make a complaint, you refuse, period. Versus the person just expresses displeasure and somewhat ambiguous to whether they want to file a complaint. So this one, it has heavier weight to it because it's a class one, really the heart of the NSA that we're in on not facilitating one's complaint. Haven't had an issue with this one. All right, any questions on refusal to accept or refer a complaint?
Captain, you mentioned there's a unintentional. Where does that lie? Where does that lie?
That is a class two. Let me see. This one actually, I have to go on the internet here because I have to pull that policy, but now is a good time for me to do it. One moment here.
Do you have examples when officers have said, "Oh, it was unintentional," but you have been able to sustain that it was intentional? Like like, do folks try to use whatever language is in the class two to try to get out of class one? I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. Let me pull up the policy while I'm talking about this, but it's yeah, I mean, we like at the end of the day, we like to use a reasonableness standard, but yeah, it's like when a reasonable person, let's say the body worn camera, the person says, I want to make a complaint. You know, that the person's very clear. And if the officer fails to do that, we can make I think, a valid argument for the class one section that we just reviewed. I would say the only caveat to that is, you know, the scene is chaotic where it may be reasonable that the officer did not hear the person saying that they want to make a complaint. I can see the argument there, but you know, we've had it before where the person's on body worn camera, it's just the officer and this person. The person clearly wants to make a complaint, and there's efforts to deter that person from doing that.
When it's class one, it's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of wiggle room in that. Yeah. Okay.
No.
That's what I make sure.
But I will share this. So back in 2023, and Stanford helped us with this, where there were a lot of technical violations, and we just made it like, if a person expresses specific articulated dissatisfaction with an aspect of a police service to a member, but does not request to file a complaint. So they don't explicitly say, hey, I want to make a complaint. The requirement is that the member shall not discourage or deter them from exercising the right to make a complaint. This is the big one. Ask the person if they like to speak to a supervisor. That was the biggest change. Even though it seems kind of minor, it was a big change, because it used to be we would ask if they want to speak to a supervisor, and we had to ask if they wanted to file a complaint. And so sometimes we get, hey, the officer saying, hey, do you want to speak to my supervisor, which implies that they want to make a complaint. But then we would discipline them for not specifically asking, do you want to file a complaint? Or they would say, hey, do you want to file a complaint, but didn't ask if you want to speak to a supervisor. And then we would get them for that technicality. So we just said, all right, we had a meeting with, I know the commission was involved, the CPRA was involved a couple years ago, and we said, all right, let's just clean it up. We just need to ask the person if they want to speak to a supervisor. And a supervisor would come to the scene. This is our current practice, and the supervisor then would facilitate that, and then they would ask the person if they want to file a complaint, facilitate it. A lot of times people say, no, I don't want to file a complaint, I just want the officer to do X, Y, and Z, and the officer or the sergeant acts like a mediator in that scenario. That's the ambiguity of the person's just upset. Hey, I don't like that you're arresting me. That would prompt this, versus I want to make a complaint. There's no question about it. That's where an officer needs to facilitate in accordance to this section that we just looked at.
Ryan, could you go back to the one we just finished?
Yeah.
I want to. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? So that takes us through all the class ones.
Well, we've accomplished a lot, haven't we?
Good.
Well done.
I was on mute letting out a big woohoo.
So I know we do have a lot to cover in the class twos. I like to argue that the class twos are a lot easier because, one, our policy encourages mentorship and training that go with class two. And there's less ambiguity with class twos. Do we want to talk about our game plan about what we want to do with that we all went through? If we want to propose those to the chief?
Yeah, yes, that's what I'm interested in is what is the next step with this product, right? How do we even now take a step back, further digest it, maybe summarize our work in a way that we could move it forward to whatever the next step is for review. And I'm sorry, you said that the next step would be for the chief to review this?
Well, I think what I might need to do is reconcile this into one document. The chief definitely needs to review it. The city attorney also will need to review it, and the plaintiff attorneys, and also the monitoring team.
How about OPOA? They don't have any.
Yeah, but they're kind of the last stop in the. So we give all the unions really, because it's the civilians too, their POA an opportunity to review them.
So after everyone has reviewed it, all the departments and the, you know, the unions, does it come back to us? What's the next step after that?
It would come back just for really finalization. I mean, really the
Okay.
commission as a whole, it wouldn't just be the ad hoc, but yeah.
I was
So
gonna
it
say at
wouldn't
that
come-
point,
it
they
wouldn't-
would they, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
So it wouldn't come back to the ad hoc, it would go to the full commission?
I'm sure it would be the ad hoc, just because people would, like, for example, I know the chief, you know, we talked about this before about Miranda, and maybe he'll have different insights and something that we should reconsider. We come back to the ad hoc and rework some things and then propose it again. Yeah,
That's what I was hoping would happen. Thank you.
yeah, certainly.
Yeah, that if there's a room for that final negotiation after that feedback, would be great, because it'd be good to identify if there is kind of maybe some stalemates or areas where we just don't agree, and hopefully we could get to a place where we all agree, and then be able to present to the full commission.
So maybe what I can do is write a memo that talks about why we have this ad hoc, what we've done. Here are the class ones for your consideration to the parties looking at this. And then while that's working in the background, we can move on to the class twos.
Makes sense. Yes.
Sounds like a game plan.
I agree.
And that way we will be able to gauge the seriousness with which they take this work that we're doing. And whether or not it will be shelved, or whether or not it would be engaged with the union and we could get maybe this phase done and in negotiations with the union if necessary. So yeah, I'm all for it. Go for it.
In fact, are we saying that we are willing to stop the work on the class twos if it comes back to us that some group or someone dramatically changed what we were saying on an item in the class one? And should we start the negotiation on that at that point?
I'm not in.
Or are we saying that once we hand this off, is it like a baton? We're done. We've ran our course. We're done with it.
Well,
I
there's
just don't know.
two parts to that, because if we are changing a major policy like this, there would I presume it has to go through bargaining with the union and Captain Hubbard.
Meet confer.
Meeting confer.
Mm-hmm.
So either we could try to complete the entirety of this work, including the class twos, or we could do it in phases. I don't know. It's up to us, I guess. But there's so much turmoil. We're about to get a new mayor. I don't know what route we should take, but we should try to do this as expeditiously as we can. And if bifurcating it by sending the class ones ahead while we work on the class twos, or just waiting to wrap up the whole bundle, I don't know.
Seems like it would be a quicker process if we continue the work. And so if like hand off what we've worked on and then start working on part two. So at least parties are now engaged, and it gives the other parties or stakeholders who have to look at this document a little time to look at it before we come back at them with the next phase of our work.
So are you suggesting, Kathy, that we bifurcate it, send this part forward?
Yes.
Okay, does it mean that once we've passed it on, we're done with phase one?
until it comes back with the union's comments. And
That's what I'm trying to get some clarity on. Let's say the chief comes back and says, I don't like this item in this section. And this is why. Shouldn't we be trying to understand him
absolutely.
and trying to make him understand us and meet somewhere in the middle?
Absolutely.
And so I guess what I'm saying, I just don't
Do you
want to
think we should wait
hand
then?
off the baton and start working on the twos and we're done. And
no, that wasn't my recommendation at all.
I know, that's what I'm trying to get some clarity on. Do we have any influence, any power, any leverage in regards to that once we finish this, we hand off the ones, we spend a lot of time on this, we hash this thing out, okay, it's sent on, and do we get to look at it again and see what was received and what wasn't, and why it wasn't received?
Well, we are legitimate ad hoc committee of the Oakland Police Commission.
Right.
And the Oakland Police Commission is responsible for reviewing policy, practices, and procedures. Of course, once we establish what this new policy or procedure is, then the who is it? The auditor, our auditor. What's our auditor on?
OIG.
All right, Inspector General.
Boy, it only takes a little while for that stuff to pay. The Office of Inspector General will be monitoring it like the monitor does to make sure that it's being implemented. So there's no release, if you will, of our authority to oversee what we do, but it has to go through a process with the union, and the chief has to look at it. And yeah, we're going to be pushing back and forth. So this
I like the idea. And I like the idea of sending off this first part with a memo summarizing and get sending this part off so they could look at it. Because my guess is we'll probably get through and finish the level 2s before they finish their process of commenting on our edits. So we might as well just send that off, get it going, and then take it from there.
Yeah, and to say, in the interest of ensuring that this is done as expeditiously as possible, we're sending you this phase of our work.
That sounds good.
With the expectation that we will receive in a timely manner your response, comments, and anything related to the union as well, because I suspect we have to send it off to them. And they meet and confer. And they probably will have a lot to say about some of this stuff, because we've tried to close a lot of the loopholes that they've relied on over the years.
So, Captain, would that memo be to the chief? We send this to the chief, and then he begins his process of having the appropriate parties comment on it, including himself.
I actually have a map of how policies work here, and I believe it goes to the chief, because I might send it in conjunction to this city attorney's office, and we can all kind of work together.
Yeah.
But definitely the chief. I'm going to start with the chief.
Yeah.
Would 2 weeks, by the time we meet again, would that give enough time to shore up those last little edits of this and then get a draft of a memo for us to maybe give eyes on to collectively send out?
I definitely can get the memo done. I'm not so sure about reconciling all of the class ones to make it a nice
gotcha.
document, but I can definitely get the memo done. At least the introduction of like what needs to be done, what the path is moving forward.
Great. Yeah, because we have some master wordsmithers here on this panel, so I'd love to make sure that it captures the hard work that went into this process and what we want the chief to consider, or everybody to consider, that matter. Great.
And let them know the work is continuing on class 2 violations.
Right.
And I'm hoping the chief will be on board with a lot of this. I know you've been in communication, Captain, with him, and I don't think a lot of any of this stuff is going to be a big surprise. We've taken on some class 2 considerations, at his request as well too. So I think he'll also be pleased to look at and see some of the work around that. So I think just all the other parties that you mentioned, that's going to probably, the wheels turn slow in Oakland. So we'll see how long that takes. But all right. Is this a good place then to go ahead and pause, Captain, from where we're at right now?
Just one more consideration before we log off. So remember, we have the discipline matrix that go along with this, and that I think is where the real fight is going to be. I think there's a lot of different opinions there, and so that's the one thing we have to consider is like, when do we roll that out? Because without the discipline matrix, this is meaningless, and vice versa. So is it, here are the class 1s and here are the current discipline matrix, let's hash it out? Or, so that's one just consideration for a future discussion.
And no, absolutely. Because I'm also thinking about like even CIPRA's role in that, because part of it is like, how can we get everybody on the same page so that we're at this great day where everybody looks at it, agrees that there's a violation, and like, boom, both thinking the same day on discipline. I'm like, great, we're all on the same place on where we think that consistency and discipline should land.
Yeah. And yes, the CPRA definitely has to be involved. The city attorney's office is going to be much bigger. Yeah.
And I know for me personally, like that becomes very technical. And again, there's other contact and really just experts in that field, right? And I think where we really brought, and I think this is where I want the memo to be reflective is I think a lot of our strength and contributions has been in this language and removing ambiguity and making it up to date. And now what happens when they violate this, now that we've made it very clear and we've concise things and modernized stuff, right? And like, again, this memo kind of would summarize what we did here, our work here. I think there are other, kind of deferring to other parties and other minds to start looking at these actual days and what those ranges actually are, and if those even need to be adjusted.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that will be
okay. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up as well too, because that's definitely a necessary step for sure.
Okay, well, I know what my mission is next 2 weeks, so I'll get it done.
And if there's any, and also I'll ask, maybe looking around, Kathy, Deacon Lyles, Miss Marsha, I think, if there's other thoughts that you feel like already that proactively you want to send over to Captain Hubbard in terms of like this process, want to make sure that there's certain sentiments that are covered in that memo just ahead of time as he's putting it together, feel free to do so as well too, so that he can try to capture the essence of the work that we did here.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Excellent.
Maybe we can see your memo before it goes out, and maybe there's something that'll trigger a thought. What do you think?
Yeah, I hope I had
like one last viewing of it.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I mean, I'm gonna I hope to have it emailed to all of you before even our meeting, so then so we can process it and then openly discuss it in our next meeting a couple weeks from now. Sure.
Good. Thank you, Brian, for your work, and Ricardo and Marcia. Thank you. Kathy, thank you.
Yes, thank you all. We completed a phase. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I definitely don't think this should be taken lightly. There's days that we've picked each other up, and every little contribution and thought and discussion has, I think, led to a pretty thoughtful product. So appreciate you all joining us.
Yeah, and I believe the fight is just beginning. This is just the first fight.
Oh, of course, but we're going to celebrate every little step we accomplish.
Exactly. So that's why I want to see it again, and I want any change that folks object to. I want to know why they object to it. I want to hope that we can have another shot at finding the middle ground or the 50-yard line or whatever issue it is. I just don't want it to be where we hand it off and then We have no say so after that.
No, that was never
No.
going.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
And
Let me say too, now that we've kind of closed this out, the mayoral, there's going to be a mayoral town hall where mayoral candidates are going to be questioned about their objectives if they are voted in as mayor. And I want to make sure to ask questions concerning their intent regarding the police commission.
Mhm.
Because as it, when we, have you guys had another, should we go off with, I don't want to.
I can, let me try to, I'm gonna stop recording.
Yeah.
All right, wait one second. Yes.